All right. Hello. My name is Earl Marvin. I started attending OVS in 2011. I've been here for 9 years. Sorry. OGS. My fault. I'm going to Orange Coast College next year and to go row and get my associate's degree with the plan to transfer to somewhere else. We'll see. So my family also chose Oak Grove for all the reasons you've ever heard ever. We loved how it looked. The teachers seemed super nice. When I visited, Carol was super sweet. Is Carol still? No. Anyway, Carol retired, but I meant. Anyway, Carol was amazing, and so we stayed for her and the more intimate learning environment. Yeah, so here's some photos from all that, and moving on. So that's the intro. Here I'm with my siblings, and then I'm visiting college here. Starting with the art of academia. To me, the art of academia is learning to accept that it is incredibly difficult for me to achieve something that I do not want for myself, which basically means that external motivators don't do anything for me, whether that be a punitive measure or something like, if you do really well on this test, you're going to college, etc. That doesn't do anything for me. If I'm not self-directed and by myself, or if I'm not independently interested in the subject, it's not going to get done. I chose this focus question because I believe the biggest point of growth that I've had in high school is coming to that realization. In the last few months, as I've reflected on kind of just my academic career over all of the years that I've been a student, that has been self-evident to me. I've realized that despite the promise of having potential to be like a perfect student, it's not what I want for myself. And it took 6 years, but here we are, I came to it. And so that fighting against that truth resulted in consistent troubles and failures for 6 years. And I would encourage everyone to take a look at themselves and assess where they're at. So for context, in 6th grade, I transferred to OVS. At this time, I had no idea what kind of student I was, obviously. I was a 6th grader, and I wanted to try something new. And so that was a new challenge where I could, experience what a more academically rigorous school system was like. And I did all right. I mean, my grades have basically been the same from middle school until now. Like, my GPA has always been the same. But in all of my report cards for the last 6 years, everyone's told me that if only he just put in a little bit more effort, he owes it to himself to prove to everyone that, he's such a smart kid, like he should be able to do all this schoolwork. And that over the years kind of compounded into this amalgamation of a different personality between the student I was and the student that everyone thought I should be. And this would have some pretty serious consequences going forward, resulting in like a bunch of different kind of blow-ups at the end of every semester. And So as you can see from my first report card, it's kind of hard to read, but the gist of it is basically, Earl's a great kid, but if only he didn't turn in late assignments, which everyone here is, that's pretty true. And and basically, like, in this report card, he doesn't say it explicitly, but we had conversations where he said that I owed it to myself and to the others in the classroom to try harder and be the student that everyone thought I should be. And so pushing against this belief now, it's a little late to have a perfect high school experience now, has been a really incredible period of growth for me. So how I came to all this, how I came to this new understanding of it's okay to actually not be a perfect student, even if you're supposed to be one, is basically I got hit in the head. So I row for Cassius rowing, and so I rowed for 1.5 years. I trained really hard, and then on my first race, my first official race, I got hit in the head with like a 210-pound boat, which is brutal. And so I spent about 4 weeks inside just drooling and looking at walls. And it's not as fun as it sounds, but it does give you a lot of time to think about everything. Even if you get a little bit reset, like your headache kind of, I don't know if you've read Harrison Bergeron before, but like The Dad, that's kind of what it's like if you've read that. And so I would like go in and out of like thinking about like what what am I supposed to do once this is all done? Because I had been on an upwards trajectory because of rowing. My grades had gone up. Instead of like the odd couple C's, I had 3 A's or whatever. And then I get hit in the head and it's all reset. And so it gave me a really good period of time to where I could assess where I was at, what I valued. And so that was really, honestly, even though it was a tragedy, I see it more as an opportunity to grow from it rather than like something that happened to me. So I realized that, in doing my schoolwork, I will not do work if it's motivated by, what I was saying before, just extraneous things. It doesn't work for me. So I would urge everyone here to assess that for themselves and see what they can do about that, because when it comes to very specific subjects, like I'm all in. With a lot of the history material that we've done, like a lot of those projects I spent much more time than like a lot of the other people would, just because I was into it. And so that's actually a gift, not something to train out of yourself, which is what I was trying to do. And so these report cards aren't, the artifacts are supposed to kind of show growth over time. But instead of doing that, I'm suggesting that basically the stagnation is what gave me the growth. So all of these report cards basically say the same thing over a period of 6 years. But that resulted in me growing out of it, if that makes sense. So, the art of inquiry. How has high school influenced your ability to observe fact-finding question? So I picked this focus question. That's not the right. I picked this question, and before I say that. To me, the art of inquiry represents the act of prodding the subject of discussion with questions to reveal the center of debate. So I actually have to thank Gabriella for this. She taught me this skill. Essentially, before I had like really grandiose ideas of what truth was. It was black and white, and I couldn't really see a side to it. And if I felt I was right, that other person was basically worthless to me in that moment. I've now come to realize that this doesn't build good habits for interacting with people. And in fact, that can only serve to like cement things that are just wrong. It's important to pick around things and ask questions. And even if you think the other person is a total idiot, there's a lot to learn from idiots. And I think that this trip, similarly to how the concussion like forced me to just like sit and think for a while, different circumstance. So this happened in so as I was turning into a junior. So this was pre-concussion, but basically we went on a 60-hour road trip to Minneapolis, and so my cell service didn't work all the time, so we were just talking about things. Oh my God. Okay, and I said, I remember this. I used this word too, which. I'm a staunch capitalist. I believe that everyone has the equal opportunity to make a lot of money, but many just don't know how to. Now, we don't have time to unpack all of that, but there are a lot of issues in that statement, and it's really easy while I'm like driving a Mercedes, like one of the cool like van life, Sprinter. It's like really easy to say something like that, and then I just got oh my God, I was gonna say, I got destroyed. Like I just was systematically picked apart and like owned, and no one had ever done that to me, because like when you're just arguing with like 14-year-olds, it's like a lot easier to win arguments just like through confidence. You know what I mean? So anyway, I was out of my depth, and I realized I was like, that's probably not right. And so by the end of it, I was like super sure that I didn't know anything about anything. Well, that's what it came to eventually. And I realized, maybe not over that trip specifically, but that is the catalyst for this realization that it's okay to actually be wrong. And being wrong is it's such a gift, because only through being wrong can you learn what is right, because no one starts off right. And I think that has like incredibly enriched my life. And I think it's made talking with people easier, because I don't have this weird like need to win, if that makes sense. Yeah, so all of this kind of ties back into this idea of just asking questions and picking around a subject of debate. And then once you get to the center of it, then you can have a difference of opinion or whatever it is, which is like super cool. And you can learn a lot from, because people might have ideas they haven't thought through, but the core of what they're saying can be dissected, and that's really interesting to me. Okay, so the art of carrying a relationship. So, yeah, let's take a moment to appreciate some of these photos. These are really good. So to me, this art represents how to build strong relationships upon the foundations of trust, empathy, and compassion. I chose this focus question because the people I have the privilege to call my closest friends have taught me the difference between friendships based on common interests and the friendships based on a kind of kinship. So the people you're seeing here, and there are, others too, but these are just the best group pictures I could find, have taught me a lot about what it actually means to have friends. So we've always been friends, but there was a sort of like an arm's distance away from each other. Like we were all very close friends at school, but then we go home, do our own thing, and there wasn't a ton of unity once we were actually out of school. But a lot of that changed. I would say it started to change in the second semester of junior year when we all kind of realized that it was like, this is not really how we should live our lives. And then in the beginning of senior year, there was a very specific weekend where we went camping, which Ravi talked about yesterday. And and that really like propelled us into being like, let's actually like not pretend like we're not friends, which was like an incredibly enriching experience for all of us. And I think this year has like shown that even though it was maybe like the most unfortunate period of my life, like the most good quality of moments have come from this year as well. So, and I have all of that to thank to my friends. And just even if we're not like hanging out every day, like everyone here, like I really thank you for making this year really special. So like I said, in freshman and sophomore year, a lot of us kind of grew apart, and whether it was due to COVID or, whatever extraneous circumstances, it's, I think that it was very isolating being away from each other. And I think that another trip that was pretty defining is, first the Hawaii trip, but also my mom took me and this group of friends in the snow here. Others were invited, but, unlucky. Anyway, so we took this group of 4 up to the snow, to Mammoth, and there were a lot of really good moments there, but I think that we learned to communicate really well with each other, and it became obvious to me that the relationships I've formed here over the, for some of us, I've known 3 or 4 of us for 8 or 9 years. Where was I going with that? The 8 or 9 years have built a really strong foundation where you can just kind of tap into being friends again, if that makes sense. So it's like no time was lost. And I really appreciate that about this group of people. And I think that in Hawaii is where we learned more about the art of communication, which is up next. Oh, of course. And so anyway, I've got a video from Hawaii, but we'll figure that out. So essentially... Someone count. Okay. The art of communication to me represents the methods and ways that people interact with one another. I believe that clear and respectful communication filled with empathy and understanding leads to healthier and deeper relationships. And I can attribute a lot of those skills that I've developed to Oak Grove because from a very, very young age, the Peace Bridge idea and a lot of I statements, Mary would be very proud of me right now. And so a lot of those like fundamental skills that, the core of us built up when we were in elementary school, it's so obvious how well it's carried through. And I think that due to that fact, we've created, at least in my class, I have no idea what it's like for others, but more clear, respectful communication between one another. And it's created an atmosphere where people don't feel afraid to say things. I think that Sydney said earlier that like everyone's super honest and no one's real scared of like saying something that bothers them. They feel ostracized. They'll just say it to the group. And like that would be unimaginable to like freshman me. So I really think that Oak Grove has a lot to do with that. And I think for my friend group in particular, I chose this focus question regarding that. So I chose this focus question because I believe that the art of communication is one of the areas that I've improved most. Initially, our friend group was quite uncommunicative, and outside of school, we just didn't talk very much. And we sort of all did our individual thing, which is fine, and once school hours ended. So this changed totally in senior year. And I think that we just kind of all had like a wake-up moment where we're like, we only really have another 12 months, so we can't really be like messing around and like, you know, just like giving up on it. So like I said, that first camping trip did a lot for us. And like I said earlier, a large point of development came in Hawaii where we had like a bunch of different, again, I love Mary right now. We had a bunch of different like council meetings sort of where we would sit around this poker table that was, I couldn't get a picture of it because no one had our phones, but anyway. There's like this green poker table, and it had this like weird halo effect, and it was like a really good spot to sit and talk. And we talked a lot. And we talked about everything. Like we went over years-long conflicts, like maybe not even conflicts, but just points of contention between us. And it was super healthy, and I think that a lot of us like were able to voice or clarify points of contention that were between us like for years and years. And I think that the lack of judgment in the communication and just a mutual respect is what can be attributed, what those conversations can be attributed to. How do I get this video working?
I think you'll probably just have to describe what we're focusing.
Word. Okay, so basically, what's up?
Do you have it in your photos of your
I mean, I have it on my computer. It was working on mine, but it's okay. It's all good, guys. So in this video, so we're in Ahulani, which is a really incredible resort. Not resort, but like retreat center that we went to like up in the mountains, and it was really amazing. And I think it's me, Robert, Ravi, and Cosmo are all in a room. It was a little bit Max? Actually, anyway, we were all in this room where we were just talking about things. It was a really good moment, and we were talking about like nothing basically. But a lot of that transformed into just like, as the trip went on, it transformed into more like meaningful communication. And as I'll get to, so this is like my favorite picture that I didn't know we had. Thanks, Harrison. So the story behind this isn't like an artifact or anything that was supposed to be the video, but this picture I just love. Just like a brief overview. Me and a lot of the guys stayed up the night before, like just talking, and like this was the big night. Like we played poker until like 4 maybe, and then we had to get up at 6 for snorkeling. And so this is me on 2 hours of sleep, 3 Advil, and 1 bowl of like Cheerios or something. And so I thought that was a good moment to put in there. So, well, I know. How do I do this? Just minimize?
It's just, if you just press escape, it's
All right.
other tab.
Okay. So this is my senior project. Not this. This is my senior project. So since I was a wee lad in 6th grade, me and Anshul Bajaj got really into computers. And we were in Jim's class, and basically, he introduced me to the concept of building a computer, which was an insane thing at the time. And so we built our first ones in 6th grade, I believe, and since then I've built dozens of computers. And it's something I'm super into, and it's a really fun hobby if people want to ask me about it. Like, it's a super fun thing to get into. But anyway, my idea was, I don't know if passion is the right word, but I had an interest in starting businesses. And so I thought this was an excellent opportunity to continue something that I started in freshman year, where I sold, maybe like 3 of you guys might have computers that I gave you or built for you guys. And so this is kind of me fleshing that idea out. So I built a website for this. Unfortunately, I do not have my composition book, but I wrote just like a bunch of different business plans for what I was going to do. And it's really difficult to make businesses, guys. I didn't figure it out at all, because what I've got here, this is all right, and also building websites is really difficult. But anyway, this is essentially like the Dell model, where it's like, I know I've got one stock photo. Everyone bear with me. So this is essentially a Dell model where you've got a $750 one, a $1,000 one, $2,000. But the problem with that is you enter into like the most competitive market that you possibly could. So I started thinking of ulterior like ways of actually selling and marketing a product, and that was the most difficult part of the project. So I started with the Dell thing, found it wasn't a winning strategy, but that was what I centered the website around, because without a really good idea, there's no way you can design a website. So this is what I went with for the actual project. And so if I just like tour it real quick, I have like a brief rundown of like what I did, where it started, basically the sales pitch I gave you, and then contact page, and then a home, and then if I had more time and a better idea, I would have done pictures and photography of the actual computers and put it here. So this gave me a large amount of respect for small business owners, because I thought that the product was the most important part of starting something. It's not. If you don't have a good plan, it doesn't matter if you have the cure to cancer. If you can't market it well, it's not going to sell. So I had a really good product. I understand in and out exactly what's in it, what is the best. But if you're trying to sell like Dell, but you only make $100 a computer, it's not going to work. Like I said, it's just the good product is not enough. To give back to the community, my idea was to teach like a little class to 6th graders, but that kind of fell through just because we had to do it so far after the actual deadline of the thing. So I created some of the class like materials, but anyway, it just didn't end up working out. And so to the fact that I'm an expert on the product side of it, I focus a lot of my time on that. But that was not what I should have done. The outlining part of it, which I did after I updated myself on all the information. So I probably did about 15 hours of work just like re-updating myself. That was by far the most difficult thing, so I should have focused on that more. And I'm actually very interested in working more on it once I have a little bit more time. So that's going to be interesting. And I think that this, how this might influence my future is I'm super interested in trying more of this. This was kind of like a golden ticket because I already understand the industry really well, which isn't true for a lot of other things. So I already had a passion in it, so it gave me like a head start. But when you're just trying to start something from scratch, it's way different. So I'm excited to see if that's like a possibility for me. And so I'll definitely take like some intro classes in college on it. And so I just found that I'm passionate in like creating businesses and designing products, etc. So anyway, that was my senior project. Next, looking back at life at Oak Grove. So just to give a little description of what's going on here. Meebo and Ravi are at the top. Well, Meebo and Ravi are at the top there. And we just walked down afterwards, obviously. And it was a gorgeous waterfall with like it was the most incredible place I'd ever been to. And it was just like marked on the map as like, oh, it's a pretty cool waterfall that you have to hike to. But it was like the most incredible place I've ever been. And for me, when I didn't jump into the water, I felt like a sort of rebirth, because when you're staring at a lot of white drywall and just kind of drooling on yourself and thinking about like, oh, all the ways that like things could have gone differently and things, sort of feels like you lose yourself in that. And this like snapped me back to the present. And it was one of the most incredible things I've ever done and like the most amazing feeling. So that's why I picked that picture. But anyway, my actual artifact is this backpack, which I have had since 7th grade. It's got a pretty good hole in it. It's pretty frayed. The zipper doesn't work anymore. I'm just holding on to it to make it through 6 years. And I think it represents some of the struggles I might have as a student. Some things fall through the cracks or whatever. I don't really keep a lot of pencils anymore. Papers aren't super organized. But I still made it through, and it's holding on for dear life. I still have one zipper, so that's what you like to see. So me and my backpack have kind of gone through it all together. Every failure at every end of the semester. I tore the bottom of it on a rock when I was mountain biking. And I also cut open my knee, and so that's a really solid memory. I don't know what that is, but it's something. So it's it's been around. Yeah. And Z Griffin, which I don't know, for those who remember, it was an interesting time of Oak Grove School. You cut through there, so there's a lot built into this. So I think having a messed up backpack kind of represents what I'm leaving high school with, but it gives me an opportunity, patch some holes up and, some wholesome turnaround that I haven't thought through all the way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay, that's the wrong way. So looking forward to life after Oak Grove. I'm going to be attending OCC in Orange County, and so OCC is known as the greatest overachiever school that exists. So it's a 2-year university, so it's community college, but it has a rowing team that's won at Henley, it's won at the IRAs, it's won at all the major. If you've seen The Social Network, the race that those two twins race at, they win that, that kind of thing. So I'm incredibly excited to see what it is I want to study in college and to more generally take classes on things that I'm super interested in. I think it's going to be a really unique transformation for me as a student. To understand my decision to actually go to OCC, it'd be impossible not to talk about rowing. So I started rowing because Zephyr said I should try it in October of junior year, and it basically just completely took over my life and saved my whole trajectory, everything. And this is a very famous rowing school, so that's why I'm probably going to college now. If I wasn't rowing, I don't know what the hell I'd be doing, but it would not be going to a university like that. And so I haven't been rowing competitively for the last 6 to 8 months because of my injury, unfortunately. So I'm super excited to go there and actually have the opportunity to achieve on a national scale again. And I am super excited to see where it takes me and what schools I can end up at. So thank you. That's it. Any questions?
You said it 4 times. Essentially.
4?
Essentially.
Okay.
Are you gonna keep making computers and advancing the website on your own time?
Yeah, like I said, I don't, in this form, no. I might interpret it differently. I've got an idea for some kind of similar to how AppleCare works, where you update it. A lot, my dad helped me kind of work through that. That's a really interesting idea where you update it every year and you send it back to me, and I'll make your computer the best it can possibly be. But I think I'm going to transition the idea into something to go for ultra high end, because I can build high-end computers better than any factory could. So it would make sense to corner that market because actually having an advantage there versus just trying to build a $750 computer, which doesn't make any sense. So yes, maybe. Yeah. I'm going undecided, but I'm super into political science and history, and I want to take some intro to coding classes. That's that. And I'm gonna row.
Seems like water is part of your journey in your slides. Can you say more about your relationship with water?
Interesting. I had never considered that, but okay. Well, so even to further that idea, yeah, in 7th and 8th grade, I surfed competitively as well. So I guess I've only ever, with the exception of like a year of soccer, I've only ever done water sports, which is funny. I never noticed that. Well, for me personally, the ocean is like an incredible place to, I feel like resuscitated when I enter it. Any water for that matter. I'm not big on pools, but anyway. So yes, love that. Yeah, so I think it's a very therapeutic feeling slipping into water for the first time after like a really hard experience. And so, yeah, it's kind of a therapeutic way of escaping whatever it is. And I think that, rowing's a little bit different. You don't get, if you're swimming, something has gone terribly wrong. But like the spray on your face can kind of keep you in the moment. And I love that about it, honestly. So, yeah, that's a really interesting question. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
We do have 2 more presenters today that I'm really excited about. And we're going to start with Cassius because she is ready to go.
We have the same computer, so
Perfect.
it should be pretty
Yeah,
cool,
we'll
actually.
just-
So, yeah. My name is Cassius. I've been at Oak Grove for 12 years. I came in 1st grade. This is a photo of me and Hannah when I was in 1st grade and she was in 2nd grade, and we unironically were a bumblebee and a ladybug. And we took this photo together, and then in 2021 we recreated it, and I think it's one of the cutest things ever. Next year, I will be going to Hampshire College to study psychology and human development, so I'm really excited about that. So my first slide is the art of academia. To me, the art of academia means having a conscious strive to better your organization, motivation to study, and overall just growing your mind in an academic way. The focus question that I chose was, how did your high school experience help you discover your strengths and deal with your challenges? My freshman year was more of a transition than I had anticipated. I had been here since 1st grade, and as many of you guys know, we don't do grades in elementary school. We only do written evaluations, and so going into school where I had to start to perform tests and get graded was tricky for me. I never had like a really good method of studying, and a lot of the people that I surrounded myself with actually did really well just like raw dogging it into the test. And I soon realized that that was not the strategy for me. I began doing really poorly on my tests, and I realized I had no study methods under my belt at all. So I decided to reach out to Hannah, who was in the last photo, who luckily for me had 1 year of high school experience when I came into 9th grade. And she suggested that I have a really dedicated time to study and get stuff done where I just like block out time and don't do anything else. And so she suggested that we wake up really early in the morning and go to Coffee Connection and try doing that. So we set our alarm for 4:45 in the morning, and it was really, really difficult to get out of bed. We biked in the pitch dark because I was a freshman and didn't have a car to Coffee Connection for when it opened at 5 o'clock, and we just started studying. And we started going more and more, and the more we started going, the easier it got, and the more I realized that I actually really, really loved waking up early in the morning. This was something that I had never thought about doing before. I usually have a really hard time doing anything after I get home from school. And I've always had a tendency to procrastinate. And so even if I was doing something the day it was due, I justified it by waking up 3 hours before I had to be at school and going to Coffee Connection. So for my artifact, I have a photo of Hannah. This is from freshman year, and we're just doing our work. And then I have a couple test scores where I did really poorly in the beginning, and then once I started like getting under wrap what I wanted to do, I used to redo all of my skill sheets. I used to rewrite all of Will's notes. I would go really overboard, but I realized that that's actually what I needed. And I actually wrote most of my Gateway in Coffee Connection. So the next art is the art of engagement. To me, that means taking a deeper look at yourself and the world around you. It's about being in touch with your strengths as well as your weaknesses while making a conscious effort to better them. And I picked What Have You Discovered About the Way You Learn? When I was in kindergarten and first grade, I went to a public school in San Diego, and my mom and I soon realized that that wasn't the place for me. I grew really frustrated sitting still all the time during class, not having a hands-on learning, and when I came to Oak Grove, I just completely flourished. I loved the small class sizes. I loved how much my teachers cared about not only my learning and education, but also my well-being. But when it came down to it, along the line, I was in 8th grade, and I was like, I really, really want to leave Oak Grove. I want to go to a bigger place that has more academic possibilities and more social possibilities. And when it came down to it, I ended up not going to Nordhoff, which is where I wanted to go. I wanted to leave and go to Nordhoff for my freshman year. And I decided that I would stick it out and see if I liked it, and if I really felt like I needed to switch, then I would. And so although I knew that Oak Grove was the best place for me to learn, it wasn't actually until this past year that I really realized how much I value the type of learning that is orchestrated here at Oak Grove. In the fall, I applied to Boston University, which was my top school, and they have over 60,000 undergraduates, so that's a really, really big school. And I really wanted to go, and I ended up getting declined, and that was really difficult for me, but it was one of the best things that could have happened because just like similarly to my 8th grade experience, I realized that I actually really value small classes, being able to have intimate relationships with teachers. And if I had gone to BU, I know that I would not have had those options and nobody would probably know my name. So my artifact for this is I committed to going to Hampshire College, which is a very small liberal arts college in Massachusetts, where there's also no grades. It's only written assessments. It's very independent driven. You can take, you get to really create your own schedule and classes. There's no required general ed, and it's just a place where I know I really will be able to create my own way of learning, and that's something that, although I will be going all the way across the country, it will really be feeling like home still. Moving on to the art of communication. To me, the art of communication means effectively communicating with those you're in contact with by being honest and asking for help, as well as having an open mind as to what others have to say. And my focus question for this is, how has your ability to communicate improved over your high school career? I've always been a really independent person, and I have a difficult time asking for help. And this is something that I quickly realized would need to change when I started having like health complications starting in my sophomore year when I got really bad pneumonia. And then the doctors like totally messed up and told me that like it could be life-threatening, and it was really scary. But I started slipping in my classes, and more importantly, this year I had like other health complications. The things that I took away from this is that doctors don't always know what they're talking about, and I guess I just have a very compromised immune system, but I'm okay. But I started falling behind because I was missing so much school. I was going to many doctor's appointments and dealing with extreme fatigue. And I nap like so much. I mean, I fell asleep yesterday at like 3 and didn't wake up until 8:30. And that's a pretty normal thing for me to do. So this was really difficult because it was hard to communicate the reality of my situation to my teachers. I had this expectation that I didn't believe that what was going on with me was a good enough excuse for the way I was performing academically. And this was really difficult because I really had to ask for help. And it was hard because I didn't believe that it was a good enough excuse. So I thought that nobody else would. But when I did open up, it got to a point where I really needed to because I was really struggling in my classes, and it was really, I was greeted with very open arms and a lot of support, and my teachers were really willing to meet me where I was at in my situation. And I'm really grateful for that. And since then, I have just told myself that I'm going to really communicate the needs that I have and make sure that I'm never like in a situation where I feel like I'm not speaking up for myself if things need to be done. So this all accumulated in me dropping my calculus class. And this was really difficult for me because going into my senior year, I told myself I was going to take all 5 classes because it really was for the sole purpose of not having to be sad that I wasn't going to be with one of my teachers for the year. But after I realized that that was unrealistic and there's nobody else in the senior class that takes all 5 classes, I decided that I was going to drop calculus. So here are some emails that I sent to Sydney and Russ and then Marie. And it was really sad to me because I love Marie, but I don't love math. And I have come to terms with that, and that's okay. It's not my strong suit. I think algebra is pretty cool, but after that, it gets really tricky and my brain starts to overheat, and it just wasn't something that I thought I could handle. So I communicated this, and everybody was really nice about it, and really they all understood that this was something I needed to do. My next art is the art of aesthetics. To me, this art just means all of the beautiful things that this world has to offer. Music, people, nature, all different types of art. And my focus question is, in what ways has your high school helped you discover and appreciate beauty? So I have always really loved people and loved being around people since as long as I can remember. But it wasn't until we went on the Hawaii trip that I had a really big awakening. Going to Hawaii was a big eye-opener for me. I got to experience, I haven't done a whole lot of traveling in my later years of life, and so going to a place that's very different from where we live here in Ojai was really amazing. And just stepping off of the plane and being in a completely new environment made me realize how much I value nature and also traveling. But the biggest thing for me was the bonds and the things I got to witness throughout our class. So here are some photos. There's one photo of me with a chicken, but the rest of the photos are our whole class, and that's pretty much how we stayed just about the entirety of the trip. And so this was really difficult. There came a point where arguments became like our main source of communication, and it was really difficult, and everybody was so frustrated with each other because everybody's out of their element. Nobody has their phones, nobody's in their rooms, nobody gets to have their regular schedule, and so it's really, really hard. But I actually was so happy during this time while everybody else was so upset because I just was really appreciating the beauty of getting to see all of my classmates, some of which I've known for practically my whole life, in a completely new light. I mean, camping trips are always get to show different sides of people because you get to see your classmates when they first wake up, when they're really hungry, when they're missing home. But Hawaii was different because we were all really far away, and we all had to be together all the time, and it was really difficult. If you see In the photo on the right, there we're sitting in front of the defaced Captain Cook monument, and I don't think that there's a single person in here that's smiling. Everybody's really unhappy. In the airport, I'm eating a bag of chips, and here I'm eating a salad, so I kind of was just like eating my way through the trip. But it was really, really beautiful, and I realized if I can make these beautiful like connections with so many different people that I know I never would have been around if I had been at such a bigger school, I want to be able to do that with a lot of different people, which brings me into my Pathless project. So for my Pathless project, when choosing what I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to do something with people. I love talking to people and interacting with them. I considered doing charity work with various organizations, but I realized I wanted to do something more raw. And a lot of times with like charitable organizations, you're getting people that I basically wanted to make a difference in people that didn't think that they needed any help. And so I came up with this idea of just having random conversations with strangers. And I filmed it. These are some of the photos. This is just like some of the people I got to talk to. It was really amazing. I asked people what their name was, who they were, like how they would describe themselves. And then I asked them to pick a number through 1 and 6. And there were various different kind of like self-reflection questions. I'm sure you guys have like seen something like this on like YouTube. This was like my rendition of it. And then I asked people how they were doing. And there was a lot that I learned that I didn't think I was going to through this process. I've always considered myself an extremely outgoing person, and I believe that I can have a conversation with just about anybody. But I was really surprised to see how nervous I actually was in approaching people. And that part was really difficult. There was a lot of people that did not want to participate and gave some pretty discouraging looks as they passed by me. But there was a lot of people that did stop. And the one thing that I realized is I thought that my biggest struggle in this was going to get people to actually be honest and open up. But what I realized was when you give people the opportunity to talk, they do. Like when you are showing somebody that you're listening to them, they just talk. And it's really, really beautiful. And I have a, can we see this? Okay, so I have a short little video. I'll only play some of it. But this is just like clips from some of my conversations with the people that I saw. And some questions on there, you'll see. Okay, so it's not playing on the speaker. How are we doing today? What are we, okay.
To
That?
then choose Samsung. There you go.
Okay, it should be working. Wait, what's happening?
I'm social, but I can be a homebody. I love my family and animals and my boyfriend. I just want to be a comfortable, happy person. That's pretty much it.
Sailboat captain. I live on a sailboat, and here in Ventura Harbor, and I also work at a boatyard in Marina. I'm doing redevelopment projects. I'm a project manager.
I would describe myself as a very independent individual. I believe I'm like somewhat religious. I think I have like a really strong moral compass, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I care like I'm a very committed person. Like family is really important.
I describe myself as passionate, really hopeful to others. I'm trying to like make a big difference in the world, you know, try to inspire other people, you know. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Bit of a traveler, really haven't stayed in the same place for any longer than 2 or 3 years since I left home.
Very cool. Where'd you grow
Was
up?
born in California, in Tarzana, actually.
Okay, cool.
And moved out to Wyoming after that. From there to Vegas, from there to Sedona, Arizona, out to Chicago, and now just recently to Traverse City, Michigan.
Okay. And you're just visiting here?
Yep, just visiting. We
Right,
actually
then
just
that's
got
your
married.
next-
Yeah.
Oh, happy.
Just got married.
He just got married.
So here visiting family, and aside from that, we're gonna head back out soon. and just enjoying California.
You know, I met a woman at a car dealership. I had seen her before, you know, but we were doing our own thing, and then I asked her out on a date, and she's been my wife for 36 years.
I was in Trader Joe's about a month ago, and this lady and I were looking at flowers. And I don't know if she was my age, younger, or older, but anyways, we were looking and commenting on how beautiful they were. And she started to tell me that she had just moved here to Ventura. And she didn't know anybody and all that, so okay, fine, I introduced myself and that. Well, then about a week or so later, we were back in Trader Joe's, and it was right before Easter, and I got talking to her, and I had some flowers in my basket, and she really liked the flowers. So after I checked out, I went back in and got her a bouquet of flowers and gave it to her. And we are now going to be meeting for coffee next week. Yeah.
This morning when I woke up and I hugged my lovely wife when we fell asleep together last night and we woke up together this morning.
I met her 25 years ago, and I was looking forward to random rooms. I had a move from the valley to Ventura, and I needed a
Sorry about the sound.
to move out here real quick, and then had no intention at the time of falling in love, but we fell in love, which is a natural thing, almost at first sight. So now we've been married for 21 years.
I think I was like 17. Nice girl. Really, she was big personality. I think I had kind of a big personality, but not.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it because of time. But I went to Ventura. I went outside of Target. I went to the Ventura Pier. I went to Venice Beach, and I went to Santa Barbara because I kind of wanted to like cast the net pretty wide so I could get like a large variety of people. Oh no. What the technical difficulties? Okay. And it was really beautiful. And there was actually a lot of people that got really emotional and were really honest with me. And it was really, really cool because most of the time you're just passing upon the street and you see people and you don't even think about them having their own separate lives than you do. And stopping and actually talking to them is really cool. And I know that I made a lot of their days. And so I knew that I wanted to have an impact on the community, but I knew that with this, it would be more of a personal thing where I would kind of create a connection with these individual people, and that's how I would kind of make my mark. And when running into challenges, I really had a difficult time putting together that video. I chose to go to places that were extremely windy and the sound was really compromising, and it took me a lot to try and get the sound as good as it was, and it was still really bad. So that was really difficult for me to make a video, and I realized that I'm not a film creator and I never have to use iMovie ever again. And I'm really excited about that realization. But it taught me a lot, and it definitely changed my worldview just to kind of see what we miss when we're just like living our own lives. So looking back at my life at Oak Grove, I chose these photos to represent my time at Oak Grove. The people I've met here are extremely important to me. I grew up with just me and my mom, and I never had any siblings. And being with these kids and getting to grow into the young adults that we now are has been really beautiful, and it's like the closest thing that I've had to that kind of family. So I think that these photos are great. The first one is me and Earl in 2nd grade. The one on the top is 7th grade. The one on the bottom is our senior prom photo. 2nd grade again over. I couldn't find the 1st grade one on the bottom corner, and then 9th grade up there on Halloween. And looking back at these photos, like, it's just so cool to see how much I've grown with the people that I love so much. Okay, so looking forward to life after Oak Grove. This is a photo of me outside of Nicola's house, soaking up the sun on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I was looking out at the view of the ocean and just really appreciating the place that we live for what it is. Since I have lived in California my whole life, I know that moving to Massachusetts will be a really big transition for me, as it is very, very cold. So I chose this photo to resemble me soaking up as much sun as I can get, because I know I will need it, but also my open arms resemble me being open to new opportunities and all the things that I know will come my way. And I don't know all that the future has in store for me, but I'm really excited and eager to find out. So thank you for listening. Any questions? Coco?
What made you decide to choose psychology? Because of your love of people?
Yeah, I don't know what I want to do in the field of psychology, but I know that that's what I want to study. I've thought about like so many different things. I'm interested in like criminal psychology, all the way to education, to juvenile, like so many different. I just want to help people, basically, and I know that that course of study will teach me a lot and probably motivate me to understand what exactly I want to do. Ananya?
Did you have a favorite conversation during your time with project?
Yes. So there was this one woman named Kim that I met, and also Nicola and Lily were really nice to help me out filming these because I wasn't able to film it myself. And Nicola and I met Kim on Venice Beach, and we had maybe a 15-minute conversation. She had a lot of different stories to tell. She seemed like she was struggling a lot, and she was homeless and had been moving around, and somebody had stolen her wallet, and then her boyfriend broke up with her. It was like so many different things. And just to see the effect that it had for her to have somebody ask her about herself and how she's doing and really listen, I know really made a difference. And that was really beautiful to me because people don't stop and communicate with each other as much as I think that they should. And that was just super eye-opening to me because you can learn something from everybody on all different walks of life. And that definitely held true in this situation for me. Will?
You spoke really eloquently about like trips and how they kind of force people to interact and intersect with each other. And I'm curious, like, what you observed, because we went through this period of 2 years with no trips. And do you think that had an impact on class dynamics and the school?
Yeah. I was really, really heartbroken when I found out that I wasn't going to be able to go to India with my class, because that's something I've been looking forward to for my entire high school, well, my entire Oak Grove career since I was like 1st grade and I would watch the India night. But we didn't get to go on our sophomore backpacking trip or the cross country. Southwest trip. Thanks, guys. And that was really hard for me because those are the things that I really, really value about Oak Grove and the opportunities that they give. And I was really lacking that. And as I know everybody had felt like being in isolation and being on Zoom school was really difficult, but it made it like even harder because those trips are really where I believe our class connects and makes those connections that kind of last the whole rest of the year, even with like El Capitan and stuff like that. So it was really difficult. Any more? Okay. Thanks, guys. Well, I'm going to unplug this.
Parker.
We're gonna get this over with quickly. Hi, I'm Parker. I've been attending Oak Grove for 4 years. Oh, here. There's a cute baby picture of me. Artist since birth. Yeah. So here we go. Yay! So I've been attending Oak Grove for 4 years. It was not my choice. Basically, I went to a public middle school, and it was such an interesting time. Something I don't like to reflect on, but basically, just of it, I was like, you know what? I've got my friends, and I want to keep those friends, and making new friends is not worth it. So we're going to go to a public high school, too. And so that was my plan. And then I went to VHS for like a week, and basically already I had been yelled at by multiple teachers for like random things. They already messed up my schedule, and my friends were already mad at me. So I was like, this is going kind of well. Freshman year is off to a good start. And so then Michael was going to go to Oak Grove for middle school because he saw my public middle school experience and was like, no. So basically I was home alone, and Michael and my parents were at Oak Grove for some event, and I was getting my dad's text messages on my computer because it was something we didn't fix, and I see this text message, and is Parker excited to go to Oak Grove this year? And I was like, excuse me? And so I pick up the phone, and I'm like, hey, so I saw this text, and I think somebody has some misinformation, because I don't think that's what's going on here. And basically, my dad was like, so, surprise. And I was like, And he's like, freshman orientation's in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, okay. At least I don't have to do that essay anymore. So basically, yeah, that's what happened. But to be honest, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I think that if I had gone to VHS, I would be a much different person and not in an awesome way. So I think that really it's much for the better. And so, like, thank you to my parents for, like, forcing me, because I don't know if I would have grown the way I did. Anyway, so these are the pictures that I chose. The 2019 one is me freshman year in a Hawaii trip. I went with Michael and my dad. Michael's my brother. And then the other one is me and our senior class trip to Hawaii. I think the picture is taken by Cassius. And I don't know, I was trying to find pictures that I didn't look awful in both of them. So I think that's what I've got here. Yeah. Okay. So Art of Academia, starting with that one, like everybody else. Art of Academia is defined as demonstrating the mastery of content standards and conventions in each academic discipline. So basically a victim of senioritis' worst nightmare. When I come to this art, the first thing that comes to mind is grades. That desperation to achieve this golden all-A standard is something I've tried to catch up on since middle school. Even like in 6th grade, the honor kids were given a ceremony and awards for being top of their class with the highest GPA, and weeks of stressing to meet deadlines to be the gifted kid. You got this small honor kids keychain, so obviously it was worth it in the end. And so what I learned that this mindset just isn't awesome, and it isn't true. I think that the Art of Academia is actually not the end grade, but the steps you really took to get there. So my focus question is, how did independent learning help me to grow in this area? And I picked this question because I feel like it's a good thing to help me kind of explain this growth, because it was kind of a big growth for me, because procrastination and I are like best friends. So senior year physics and calculus are optional classes for people who don't know, and you don't have to take them. So someone who has convinced themselves that math is like the modern day medieval torture, it was kind of ideal. Sorry for anybody who likes math. I decided I was not going to take either, which left me with a mandatory online class that I had to fill up those absent credits. And so I downloaded BYU's animation class because I was like, yay, college is going to love that I'm taking an animation class. And I was set on my way. But what I didn't really pull into perspective was like I was completely on my own. I was my own administrator, teacher, and student. And they would grade my work for me, yeah, but when it came down to like deadlines and stuff, I was like, it was just me. So like most bucking bronco situations, I was on top of it at first. When it came down to the idea to jump on the massively aggressive animal in the first place, it wasn't a shock that I was left behind in the end. In the mud, left to be trampled, with no fault but my own. I remember my peers would ask me how my independent class went, and I would just be like, it's going. it's going. Which even then was like an utter lie. And I remember Russ was like lined up each of the independent students, and he's like, I'm gonna talk to you each individually. And we're all like, uh-oh. And he came to me and he's like, how's it going? And I'm like, oh, it's going. And he's like, you know you need this to graduate, right? And I was like, sorry? Excuse me? To graduate? Oh, yeah, no, I had that planned. So basically, as the deadline stacked up, anytime animation was even mentioned, I'd be like, I'm gonna change the subject, because we don't really have to get there. And so my dad and I ended up making a calendar, and every Monday and Thursday, and this was like a couple weeks ago. Like, I finished this in the nick of time. But basically, my dad and I made this thing, and I sat down every Monday and Thursday, with some exceptions, and did an entire unit, which actually ended up working out in the end. And it kind of, yeah, but to be honest, one of the most frustrating classes I've ever taken in my life. Like, I could sit here and slander BYU for literally like an hour, but we're not going to do that. But most of my assignments had this really nice 0, which you can see, nice at the bottom, which brought my grade down a lot, which was not ideal. But I did end up completing most of my assignments, and I do hold a B+ in that class now, so yay. And a source that proved helpful was my notebook. I forgot it conveniently at home, but I have this really nice picture. It's like this big. So I chose this as my artifact because taking notes is something that I've learned personally that helps me to stay focused and really retain information. I came to terms that learning on my own is not a good working environment for me, but I was capable of pushing myself to finish it because I do want to graduate high school, and I didn't really think that it would be possible, but it was. And so, yeah, I brought the notebook as my artifact. Well, I didn't bring the notebook, but I brought a picture. And it is full of, like, terms and definitions for, like, different animation, like modern and historic, and it symbolizes this art because it was a tool that really helped me to retain and organized and understood the material that I had to be responsible for. And these notes capture like literally just all the effort that I put into this class because it's like almost full, which is kind of crazy, which also makes sense because it's small. But yeah, and that's my Art of Academia, basically. Also, Oh, and those are my completed assignments. I forgot about that part. Okay, Art of Aesthetics. Oh, okay. Yeah, those pictures. So basically it's defined as the appreciation of aesthetics in all forms of the natural world and life itself, to discovering and to continue to develop your artistic abilities, and no, that doesn't sound like me at all. And so for those of you who are fortunate to not know how I function, I am completely creatively controlled. Sometimes logic is just not part of the equation at all. And I just need things to be organized and tidy. You can ask my poor brother, who I may have made clean his room on multiple occasions. Basically, this art has been a huge part of my high school career and has helped me to evolve and grow and be comfortable with who I am and how I express myself. And so my question is, how has this art shaped my sense of self? Because basically, this art has shaped my sense of self and is like the biggest part of me, I think, personally. So I've always been a creative type. I literally do any art form I can get my hands on all the time. I'm constantly artistically engaging in how I solve problems and move forward with decisions, and people who know me is that I fiercely channel my creativity through my art and my appearance. Many of you know how intensely I take our school spirit days. Though I wasn't always like this, like starting out as the new kid, I don't really know how exciting wearing like knee-high glittery boots and just like glitter would have really worked out for me. And it was kind of an ocean of tension I was positive I was going to drown in, so it wasn't totally something I was stoked for. But I kept to myself usually, and I avoided any possible interaction that may turn a head towards me. People knew I liked art. That was kind of an unavoidable fact. There's only so many things you can answer to, like, what do you like to do outside of school at freshman orientation? So, yeah, eventually I became more acquainted with my peers, and I learned how these people didn't really, like, care how I presented around me. So I slowly began to, I don't know, just, like, not expressing myself just felt so boring. Like, yeah. And, like, expressing myself is something that I do. It helps me get up in the morning and get excited to do things. So it's just a good motivator. And slowly over the years, I decided to do what I like to present myself. And this outlet of imaginative shine is something that really defines me and lets people know what they're getting into, like when they come to talk to me. So it really helps me to find meaning and motivation for my day. And allowing me to begin my morning right. Lots of my friends have heard me been like, yeah, if you're not really feeling super pretty on the outside, it's nice to be pretty on the outside because some people have no idea. And so for my artifact, I chose my prom outfits. Literally, I could not find any like good pictures. Well, yeah, freshman year was a time. But thanks, Cassius. So basically, freshman year, I remember I was so nervous for freshman prom. Like I had no idea what to present. Like myself as, like I had no idea what to wear. Like I literally had zero clue what I was going to do. It was a rough process. I remember dragging my dad around the collection for literally hours. And I was like, and I felt so bad, but I was like, had no idea what I was going to do. And so I wanted to be like blend in, but then it was also prom. So like, of course, everybody's going to kind of go all out. Like everybody's going to be themselves, maybe, and really get into the spirit. So I was like, why shouldn't I? So prom was important because it made me feel like it helped to demonstrate how I first started to feel comfortable and confident enough to be myself. Then in comparison to this year, I forgot that I did animations to this. Basically, no ounce of insecurity was really spared and was completely demolished. So, because the last 2 years of prom were basically affected by COVID and nobody really got to do anything like super special, so it was like, oh, it's my last year, why not give it a kind of a finale kind of thing. So but basically this change was super important to me because these two instances built up together helped to tell a story of who I am and how I've grown over my high school career. So yeah, that was my little spiel. And how has, oh, the videos are working. How has, so basically art of engagement, which is also defined by taking an active interest in learning, sustaining focus, and demonstrating personal accountability and persevering through my challenges and seeking help when needed. So engagement in general is not really my domain. I'm not really great at opening up and asking for help. And when it comes down to settling rather than shooting for the stars, I kind of hold the medal there. Procrastination and I, like I said before, are like best friends. And you'd, like, literally, I was like finishing this presentation earlier today. I lost my place. But basically, yeah, no, motivation and I are not friends. We do not get along. And this art has stood as a huge, huge challenge to me, like my entire high school career. I feel like every single parent, teacher, student conference, like, my issue was always procrastination, and it has not changed over the 4 years, which is why I think I needed to put this in this presentation to keep the record up, but also because I do think I've actually grown here, which is kind of shocking to me. But basically, so this art has made me, okay, so I decided to join student council. I was able to strive for fixing my issues that lay this art and stand up and to stand out. So my focus question surrounds, how has being involved in the student body helped me to grow in this area? And I chose this question because it did. Like, it was a huge difference. So basically my first 2 years of high school, like I said in the last slide, I basically avoided any social leadership positions at all, like even if it was just like volunteering to head a school project. Like just in Brittany's class, I was just like, no. Not happening. And so basically I struggled to push myself and to stand in a position of leadership. I'd rather work alone than work as a follower. And it wasn't really up until junior year that and the student and council elections rolled around that things really started to open up for me. As the position of art coordinator was read, I saw a lot of eyes just turn my direction. And basically, a lot of people came up to me afterwards and were like, oh my God, like this is perfect for you, you have to do it. And I was like, have to is a strong word. But I wasn't totally against it because I was like, I really need to like put myself out there more or else this is gonna be a really boring next 2 years. And so basically, it's common knowledge I'm an art kid. It's not really something I try to hide at all. And it's not very hard to figure out. Many people were like, yeah, you know, you should run. And I was like, I don't know, but maybe. And I'd love to say that my mom like came up to me and like gave me this huge cinematic speech about how this is going to be so good moving forward. But let's be totally honest, arts coordinator sounds really good on college applications. So that's kind of where my motivation was at there. But I remember writing my mini speech, and because of COVID, I actually had to send in a video, so I didn't even have to present it. So that was also a big factor in what actually made me run, like, I feel like. And so I wasn't even there when they played the video, so I can't even be mad about that. And so it was a tough battle. I stood unopposed, and I won. Basically, students, whoa. It was kind of scary, though, because people were, like, now looking up to me, and now I had all this attention on, and I was like, okay, well, this is it. This is my end. But actually, it was kind of crazy because everybody in student council, like, if you're thinking about running for student council, please do, because the difference is crazy. Like, everybody there is so encouraging, and we get a lot of stuff done. Like, it's insane. But I remember that, like, late September, early October, I was walking through the student center, and I saw all of Ashton's, like, discarded Halloween decorations, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I was, like, basically in cartoons when the light bulb goes above someone's head. Like, it's insane. But basically, I got the idea. I was like, oh my God, Oak Grove should have a haunted house. Like, that's crazy. And I knew, I was already like, this is going to be vetoed so fast. Like, I would love to see the, like, little kids with their little peace circles just running through a haunted house. So I was ready for this to not work out at all. But it did, which was shocking. And so I offered the idea to student council, and everybody was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I was like, okay. So then I talked around, and it kind of worked out. And so the next few weeks, I began organizing a team to make Oak Grove's first haunted house. I spent literally hours, this is how I got most of my community service, heading ideas, and it was completely out of my comfort zone, but it was totally awesome. And I had never put so much effort into something before. I remember writing emails and like spreadsheets about people who wanted to sign up, and I remember the day that I put up the sign-up sheets for the haunted house, like, people were writing their names. Like, we ran out of spaces on the spreadsheet, so they just started writing in the little margins. And I was like, I don't really know what to do with this, but sure. Yeah, you can be a part of it. I'll figure something out. But basically, I stayed up on top of it, and I ended up creating this huge event that will hopefully go down in Oak Grove's history, and hopefully be continued, because I had a lot of fun, and I think people had a lot of fun. For my artifact, I chose these videos of the haunted house. They're not awesome. They're very shaky, and you can't really tell what's going on. So I'll try to play one, but I don't know how this is going to go, to be honest. But looking at the video, you can kind of see all the effort that was put in. It was, and there was a lot of things involved. Obviously, I couldn't have done it without my dad, who was... Here, I'll mute it. Who was a huge person who helped me to set this up. Like, literally would not have been possible without him. But basically, you can just see through the video all the effort and things that really were put into this, and like how much time it really took to set all up. Yeah, but I'm not gonna force you to watch that whole thing. But yeah, it was kind of crazy. If it wants to exit full screen. Hold on. Oh no. Hello? Hold on. We're having small issues. Can this still? Nope. Okay. You know what? That's fine. But yeah, basically, it was not a really small project, and it helps to reflect this idea of leadership that I have grown in that area in this art, and I think that I try really hard to involve myself in working leadership positions now. Like recently at Field Day, I had a lot of fun helping to organize and direct the little kids in a bunch of games, and it was really inspiring, and it also made me reflect on how much I've really grown in this art, and I definitely think that student council is what changed that for me. Nope, we're not playing the other video. We're going to the next slide. Hold on. Figure this out. Okay. Okay. We're good. No. Stop!
Maybe exit, go to the next one.
Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna do that. Nice. Oh, wow. That's crazy. Okay, so basically, art of caring in relationship. So this is defined by making thoughtful choices regarding physical, emotional, and social health, and approaching relationships with empathy, compassion, and engaging meaningfully with the community. This art is a huge one as it relates to the Oak Grove community. Like, from the time that you're, like, visiting Oak Grove, it's like Oak Grove is one huge, strong family that is super bonded and close. And this is something that I personally have struggled with for all of my 4 years at Oak Grove. This art is something that I think one of the things that I've learned the most from, and will definitely change my view moving forward onto college. And so my question is, how has this art taught me and how does it change and alter my worldview? And I chose this question because I think it'll really help me to reflect and transition into this next chapter in my life. So being highly introverted and a quiet freshman kind of left me pushing away from like everybody except for like the few people that I was comfortable with. I made a few strong friendships and the small groups in the span of the early years, and I never really expanded my social circle more than that. We had a couple falling outs, which caused a few problems, but it was difficult, and it also narrowed social aspects. But those years were honestly fine and pretty positive for the most part. Basically, so then what really happened, so those weren't the bad parts, but then basically during quarantine, social distancing like destroyed anything that I had going for me socially. And I think that can be the same for many different people. Social distancing, ruined any chance I had at building any relationship. I was set in stone on keeping my head down and convincing myself that where I was good, and I never really needed to open up more than that. I began to go to therapy for severe social anxiety, and even when we did return to campus, I would literally spend weeks, like, convinced that going to school would be like a death sentence, and I would literally just hide at home, and I would miss weeks of school, which is not ideal. I still struggle with that sometimes, and this is an art that I still need to grow in, but I think I've definitely improved a lot, which is, especially this year, which is saying a lot, which is kind of crazy. And even though today I go through similar episodes and miss school at a time, it's something that I'm still working on, but I'm massively improving on and growing in. This artifact is a text conversation I had with my mom, basically begging her to pick me up from school. There's a couple of those, so I had to pick my favorite. This artifact, I think it's kind of nice. Basically, this was taken in a place of growth, and I would like to state how I'm still learning in this area and continue to grow here. And I think though I did go home that day, I did go to school the next day, and I think that even for most people, that's just a huge step. And so I think that these messages really helped to represent me at one of my worst times, and even though I did go home, I did go to school the next day, which made sure to push myself into growth that I really needed. I knew I needed to evolve in. And I think that even though this art is one of the hardest ones I've had to live through and continue to live through, it really helps me and it widens my worldview in the way that it helps me to not judge others so quickly and really give me this understanding that, like, just being here is hard sometimes for people. And so you shouldn't, like, judge so quickly because people may have, like, it may have taken everything in them just to show up, which says a lot for a lot of people, and in a good way. And it also helps me to try to push myself out there and try to be an easy friend for people who might struggle in the same areas, because I've been there and I understand. And so sometimes just having like an easy conversation with someone can easily make their day. So I think that's why this art is super important to me. And even though it continues to challenge me daily, it's super important and is one of the bigger ones that I've evolved in for sure. Pathless project, my favorite. So basically my Pathless project was like riding in a wagon full of fireworks on fire towards like a chain of Shell gas stations. Like it was actually like one of the roughest. I was so ready to like sit down and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start it before we even get the week off. It wasn't even, the first draft wasn't even done by like the day that we were supposed to come to school, I finished the first draft. It was a rough process, and even though I'm told that's how the things ought to go, I think my favorite part was when I came back to school and people were like, oh my god, like how'd your Pathless project go? Like I went here and I did this, and I'm just like, I started it. And basically my Pathless project, so I wrote this article that I have the intention of posting in the New York Times, Procrastination and I. We still haven't posted it. But basically, this essay was an opinion piece, that focuses around the stimulus of social media and how it affected my life, because it was a big event that really changed me as a person. I actually have a draft of it somewhere. If anybody's interested in reading it, you can read the draft. I was going to try to get it published before this, but that didn't happen. So here we are. I have one piece of paper with the draft if you want to read it. But basically, I wanted to pick a project that was challenging to me personally while also seeming achievable and spoke to something that's a really huge part of who I am. And even though it was like a painfully slow process, I remember trying to hype myself up to like finish it. it did not go well. And I can safely say that the first draft was not completed until 3 days until the week was over. And so I did not finish this project by the end of the week. And luckily it wasn't due till then, which also was not luckily because keeping it open-ended did not help me finish it, as it is still not finished. And I think that basically it's super important to me, but it also needs to be done. And for this week, we were asked how this project changes our meaning and purpose of life. I don't think it changed my purpose, but as for my worldview, I think that when choosing this project, I really lacked this inspiration and flow. When choosing the Pathless project, it came down to where I just ran out of ideas, and Will was like, you have to submit your idea. And I was like, this is all I have, and I have no idea. And then when I was like, maybe I'll change it, it was like already the end of the week, and I was like, I'm going to leave it. And so I think that for my worldview, I think it really helped me to try to move forward, and where when you're setting yourself up for something, you should really do something that inspires you and will motivate you to move forward, like, continuously. And that is not what I did for this project. So I think that next time moving forward with big projects for myself, I should really, think about how this is going to affect me for the long term, and maybe do something that actually, excites me a lot more than this one did. But it's okay. It did happen-ish. And so basically, I consider this project to be one of the greatest challenges I've ever had to overcome. When it came down to the wire of this project, keeping it open-ended really made it a challenge because motivation and productivity-wise, it was not ideal. There's a lot that I needed to say in this article, and so crafting the perfect draft was not awesome, and it took so long, and even now it's like I feel iffy on it, so it's like, it's just like talking about something that was so huge to you in such like a short amount of word count is kind of crazy and hard to do. So in the long run, I do think it was an important project because it really taught me to manage time better, but also to choose something that's going to better impact my life, I think. So that was kind of a mess, but it's okay. And so looking back at my life on OGS, so basically I chose theater to kind of encapsulate this. I have changed this slide a million times, and I've changed my artifact a million times. So when I say that I was working on this project right before, this is what I'm talking about. So I'm sorry if this is a little ill-prepared. But basically, so when I came to Oak Grove, I was new, and I did not like to open myself up and try new things, and I did not like to put myself out there. And so, obviously, theater was perfect for me. But it was something that, so I was a huge musical theater nerd. We don't really need to get into it, but I loved it. And so I was like, oh my God, this is such a good idea. And then it was like, but you do have to audition. And I was like, oh, so this isn't a good idea. But basically, I did it anyway. And I ended up getting one of the leads, which was crazy. And I was like, oh, so now I have to memorize all these lines. But really, it was insane. I feel like I got to know people a lot better. And in the end, it definitely helped with my confidence. And so before, people didn't really know me and were like, oh, yeah, that's the new kid. But then I was did theater. And I was like, oh, cool, you do theater. And I was like, sometimes. But yeah, so basically, and so then I have the comparison picture. So that's Fiddler on the Roof. I had to crop the other one, so sorry for all the smaller kids that were cropped out. My bad. And then the other side is The Sound of Music, which I participated in. And I decided to choose oh my gosh, this comparison, because The Sound of Music, I ended up actually playing 2 roles, which was crazy. They were polar opposites, and it was a lot of singing. I think a week, tech week, I counted, and it was out of the 40-something, no, it was out of the 30-something songs, I was in 15 of them, and I was literally freaking out. But it ended up being so fun, and it was actually something that I heavily enjoyed, and I think looking back at Oak Grove, it really shows this growth, and also just something that really pushed me to put myself out there. So it's kind of crazy, I don't know. Siren sent me this really nice video of me singing in the first Fiddler on the Roof. I had to stop it midway through. I just could not make it through that video. But basically, it was so fun. And it was also just something that I think I'm always going to look back on, and it's always going to help me to reminisce and also inspire me to put myself out there more moving forward. And so then looking forward, I'm going to be attending Massachusetts College of Art and Design in the fall. And I'm going to be hoping to major in illustration. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's so unlike me. No, but it's going to be actually really good. Initially, I was going to go for animation, but we've shown from this presentation that motivation and procrastination are like my buddies, or not motivation, lack of motivation. And so basically, animation and I don't get along either. But illustration, on the other hand, is something I really do. These two art pieces are stuff I submitted to my portfolio. They're kind of old. I would have put better art pieces that are newer, but I didn't submit those to my portfolio, so this is what we get. But basically, I was inspired to go to this college because I ended up going there, and I want to say that it's not because one of the dorm floors is dedicated to the Rock and Pitbull, but that's kind of one of the reasons. But basically, I toured this college, and everybody there was insanely nice, and obviously, like, being an art kid and then going to an art school is going to be an insanely different experience, and I think it's going to be crazy, and everybody there is going to be so fun and interesting to meet. Not saying that none of you are fun and interesting, but you know what I mean. But basically, it's going to be a whole different experience, and I think it's going to be something that really opens my eyes up and definitely challenges me to push myself more, which I'm super excited of, also super terrified. But basically, the top corner drawing was the working cover for a graphic novel that I've started to write that is also not finished, but we'll get there. And then the other one is just a portfolio piece. But basically, yeah, no, I'm super excited to move on. I'm also terrified of living in a city, but I think that it's going to be good, and I'm excited about it. And I'm excited to meet a lot of people, and I'm excited to, I don't know, just try something new, because always trying something new is so scary, but I am so excited because I think it'll be super different. And I'm also excited to see how I grow in this new environment, because it's going to be super different. It's also going to be very cold, which I'm really not excited about, but it's okay. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. Questions? So good. Questions? Gray.
What kind of animation did you study?
It was basically, it was a mix of animation history, and then it was so weird. It was like a mix of animation history, and then the second half was like learning Blender, which is this animation program that is actually the worst thing that has ever happened to me in my entire life. Like if I hear the word Blender ever again, I'm out. No, but this program was so bad, and I literally remember I just skipped an entire lesson on my BYU course because I was like, no, I'm just not gonna do it. I just can't do it. So yeah, that was super fun. But yeah, no, don't do the animation BYU class, please. Yeah, literally. But yeah, I hope that answered your question. Other questions? No? Maybe?